Tesla Model S prices have been going down over the past couple of years. They might go up again now that they're no longer in production. Who knows? But I have my doubts. But if you are interested in buying a pre-owned Tesla Model S, you gotta know quite some stuff because, there is so many different things, well, the Model S is not just one model, there's so many differences. So, this is part 2 of a series, so go and watch part 1 so that you learn about all the differences in the Model S. I mean, we're talking from 2012 to 2026. That is a long time that they built the Model S, and there have been many, many changes. There are many differences, especially in the early days, and those very early models are really cheap right now. So, but in this here part 2, we're going into the problems. Yes, problems, issues, things go bad. I mean, 2012 is now 14 years old, right? So they will have some issues. And there are some issues that you certainly should know about because you want to know when you buy this Model S, has it already been resolved, this issue or that issue, or can you still expect things to go wrong and cost you a lot of money? So in this part, we look into all these issues that could cost you a lot of money. The Model S, you could say, was almost the first mass-produced Tesla. There was the Roadster, the Tesla Roadster, but they produced like 2,500 of them, so not very many out there. But then in 2012, the Tesla Model S came along, and it has been produced until now, 2026. But now you can only buy the few that are left over that are sitting around brand new somewhere. They no longer produce any. A legend is gone. But this legend also had problems, issues along the way, especially in the early days. So the later generation got better and better and better. Obviously, they resolved those problems over time and luckily didn't introduce too many new problems. So if you are looking into buying a Tesla Model S, a 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, up to 16. It had the black nose cone, as you can see here behind me. These probably had the most issues because they were the most changes. Initially, they were rear-wheel drive, and there was a large drive unit, they call it an LDU. And that came as a performance version and as a just standard version. And the performance version had more problem than just the standard version for obvious reasons. It's performance. It had more power and people used it probably more for more fun because they had a performance version, right? So, but they had some issues there. There were different issues. The most common one or most well known about it is coolant leaking into the motor. There have been some other issues with bearings too. Many of those have been resolved early on because with an electric motor and parts moving and different metals, there is a lot of stuff going on, and bearings are made out of steel and have steel balls, or well, they used to, even in some Teslas, and that created a problem. They have been replaced with bearings that are no longer conducting electricity. So there is no or way less wear and tear on those bearings. So that was one of the issues, but I think most of those have been resolved bearing related wise. These have a lot of drive units in these rear wheel drives have been replaced early on for some of those reasons. Some had the coolant leak early on. Some had coolant leak into the inverter part. That was not nearly as common as the coolant leak into the motor part. Now, the coolant leak into the motor part, has been a problem till forever, just recently. 2021 or so, they finally started doing some changes, I think it was. But so, yeah. There is a lot of vehicles out there now that have a coolant delete kit on the motor, on the rear motor. And so obviously this didn't just affect the rear wheel drives. This kind of stayed with Tesla for a long time for some reason. They were just not really able to solve that. And so now eventually Tesla did the delete kit on their own. Aftermarket delete kits have been available for others earlier on. And it seems like these motors work fine even if the coolant actually doesn't go in and out of the motor there. So if you purchase a Tesla Model S, maybe you want to ask about a coolant delete kit, if that has been done or not. If it hasn't been done, there's a relatively easy inspection. There's a sensor on the motor that can be pulled out. If there is moisture on it, there's a coolant leak. If it's totally dry, you're good. But that doesn't tell you if there is a delete kit or not. So many of those motors have been rebuilt already. Some that are still out there will be getting rebuilt at some point. That is just an unfortunate problem. So especially these large drive units that stayed in for quite some time because the large drive unit has a lot of power. So there's also a small drive unit that has similar issues. So drive units have been one of those things where Tesla struggled probably for at least the first 6 to 8 years. It's not that it didn't perform or anything, but mainly those leaks were one of those issues. So that is one of the things, and that's a costly thing. So you kind of want to know probably about the drive unit because it's going to cost you about 6 to 8 grand easily to get one replaced by Tesla. You can get them from other rebuilders nowadays. There is more EV shops out there, and then you might look at 3 to 5 grand or so to have one rebuilt with a delete kit. So at least there are options nowadays, so you don't have to go to Tesla with that vehicle. But that could be an issue. That's probably the most expensive issue of all. Now some of you might say, but what about the battery pack? Well, the battery pack itself actually has been pretty darn good. A lot of battery packs have been replaced early on due to contactors. Contactors are big clunky relays and they do connect and disconnect the high voltage power inside the battery pack so that when the car shuts down, there's no longer any high voltage going out. If the car gets into an accident, that they will turn off. So there's no power, no high voltage power going out to the vehicle at that point. But those contactors have to be on and they have to carry a lot of current, especially if you have a performance model and you like to floor that accelerator pedal. And early on, Tesla didn't know. They bought one to certain specifications that basically should work, but that contactor didn't last. Or actually, there's 2 of them. There's one on the positive side, one on the negative side. A lot of those failed early on, and early on Tesla did not repair any battery packs. Tesla service centers did not repair any battery packs. They just pulled them out, put a new one in, sent the other one back. Nowadays, Tesla will open them up and replace the contactors, which runs you about $1,500 to $2,000 at Tesla. Similar prices at other places because the labor is basically the same. The contactors are about the same. So you're looking at about, $1,500 if you need contactors replaced. Usually those contactors do throw a fault code or start making noise under heavy acceleration. So you can hear them. You kind of notice that something's wrong. So if you're purchasing a used Model S, you probably want to take it onto the interstate, onto the highway, and on the on-ramp, you want to floor it. You want to bring that thing, the full power out of that battery, and it should really not give you a power limitation if the battery is warm. Now, if the battery is cold, it will give you a power limitation. So you may have to drive it a little longer or warm it up, right? So, but basically, otherwise, if it's nice and warm out, 60 to 70 degrees, and you're getting on and you're driven it a little bit, then it should go without a power limitation and without any weird buzzing, clicking sounds coming from the back. if you get some weird buzzing sounds back there, that may be a contactor issue. You can then also go and if you know how to access the service screen on the Tesla, which I have a video about that, so you just go watch that video, then you know how to get into the service screen, and there you can look at the fault codes. And it would tell you something about contactors if there is an issue. Usually they have higher resistance because the contacts, as they open and close, there's usually a little spark and it kind of burns them up. Resistance grows. Eventually they have to be replaced. So now that said, it could be that it was done. It could be that it was done early on, and early on got, well, the same old bad style contactor, right, with a whole new battery pack. Or it could have been done just recently within the past few years. So you kind of maybe want to look into that with the early models. I would say maybe till 2014, 2015 model roughly. Especially the 12, 13s were very prone. So I suspect it kind of came into 14, 15 probably too. And then later on that went away as Tesla went through different contactors and finally found something that seems to work. Otherwise you're out about $1,500 if that happens. It's not a huge deal. Like I said, usually get a fault code so it doesn't leave you stranded. Now, batteries, battery packs. Another issue that has come up is a battery pack is a sealed box. It has to be able to breathe. So there are breathers, and moisture can get in through those breathers. Also, on certain battery packs, they have the lid on top for a pyro fuse. Water can pool on there. If that is not properly sealed, water can get in, moisture can get into the battery pack, as it also can through the breathers. So if moisture gets into that pack, then that will lead to problems. Because obviously moisture leads to corrosion. We have electronics in there. So contacts can go bad. Basically, they just corrode. And we're talking not the big contactors anymore. Now we're talking little tiny power flows and little tiny wires. And it doesn't take much until there is a problem there. It can just, corrosion can increase resistance, and then there will be faulty readings, or it can go to the point where you cannot even read certain things anymore inside the battery pack. And these kind of suck because these can shut down your battery pack, especially for charging. So you might go to Supercharger and they won't charge for you. They can be a little tricky. Now, if you go to Tesla, they're not doing much. They're basically selling you a refurbished battery pack. You're looking at, well, now it depends. There's so many different battery packs out there, but you're looking at about $12,000 to $15,000 roughly, just for the battery pack replacement. Sometimes along with the battery pack, Tesla wants to replace more stuff. Who knows? Because they see other things going on. They want to address it at the same time. But if you go to another EV shop, you could buy with maybe 7 to 10 grand on a complete battery pack. Now, some of the EV shops actually open up the battery pack. They go in, they look for moisture, they look for corrosion, they may fix a plug, they may remove the moisture, they put new breathers on, and test the pack again after that when they close it up, making sure it's sealed tight, and then put it up, right? So it can get cheaper. You could look at maybe 4 or 5 grand in that case. So there are whole forums talking about these codes and what all it could be, but in general, basically, battery pack comes down, needs to be opened up, gone through, which takes a little time. And most of them, or many of them, don't need any replacement parts, just a little cleaning here and there, moisture removal. It's really not a huge deal, but it's labor intensive. Now there's another issue. Sometimes some of the battery cells, so we're talking a battery pack, we're looking at, well, it depends a little bit on how many kilowatt hours your battery pack has, how much capacity, but we're looking at about 6,000 battery cells, little tiny batteries, 18 640s. So yeah, there could be many things going wrong with those, with each individual cell. Those cells are put together in a module, and then there are roughly 16 modules in there. Again, it depends a little bit on the battery capacity, how many modules it will require, right? But so usually it's 16, I think in an 85 kilowatt hour we have those modules. And these cells are hooked in there in series and parallel. And they have little tiny fuse wires going from the battery cell to a conductor, then a larger conductor usually. And so all that power comes together like that. So these fuses, if there's something really going wrong with one cell, it can burn out the fuse. And you probably will never even notice if it burns out the fuse, because it may not do anything else. You just lost one battery cell. But unfortunately, that's the less common thing that happens. Usually something in a battery cell happens where it inside kind of shortens out, but it's not a short. It just becomes one of those battery cells that eats up a little electricity. It gets warmer than all the others around it, and it just keeps stealing electricity from others. And it's just a bad cell, but it's not bad enough that it would burn that little fuse, right? And so these can be a little aggravating. If you have one, you might not even notice much. If you have multiple of them, you may notice something. Not necessarily with acceleration or deceleration, but with losing battery state of charge, because these kind of eat up the power. They turn it into heat, and away goes your power, even if the car just sits there. Now that said, they're known to eat up some power, these older ones anyway, but that may be one of the things. You may, if it gets bad enough, get a fault code or maybe even a message, but it's not very common that it will trigger something until it gets really bad. So with these, battery pack obviously has to come out. Tesla will replace the complete pack. They don't do any repairs or anything. If you go to aftermarket EV shops, if they can identify the cell, they can actually just snip with a side cutter. You just snip that little fuse, and you just cut that cell out. You will never notice that. It will be all totally fine. Now it no longer eats your power away by doing nothing, right? So also then it stays cooler again, so you may actually charge a little bit faster again at the supercharger, but these charge very slow anyway. So that's a possibility. If you have many of those, especially if you have many or multiple in a single module, then it can be a little problematic, right? But if they're spread out, if you have 5 of them and each one is in a different module, spread out over 16 modules, not such a big deal. You could cut all 5 of them, all these little fuses out, and you would be fine. Now, if you have multiple in one module, that's a little tricky, because then it's like, if you cut them all out, that module will be off compared to the other modules. That module will not show the same voltage. It will have different capacity, and the whole battery pack kind of is thrown off balance. And the car, it would drive, it would reach and all that stuff, but definitely charging can become an issue, especially supercharging. So at that point, you could replace a module, or well, I don't know if you could, but the EV shop could replace a module if they have a matching module. But that means they would have to test all the modules, charge and discharge them to see where they're actually at, and see if they have a matching module that would fall right in there, which chances are very slim. People have tried that, but again, if they throw a module in there, even though the module itself is good, it may be even better than all the others in there, it will be a problem because it's not the same. We gotta have about the same degradation across all the cells for this whole battery pack to work. So that may lead to just a complete battery pack replacement for a refurbished battery pack from Tesla, or one that came out of a salvage car. And again, the prices vary, so if you find one at a EV shop somewhere, you may get away with $8,000 or so. It depends a little bit, right? This may also be a time where you would update depending on what you would have. If you only have a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack, you may be going up to a 90 or something, I don't know, or 85. If you have an 85, you may go to a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. So that would be a chance where you actually could upgrade and then have more range. And if you upgrade usually to a bigger battery pack, maybe you get a little better charging. Depends a little bit, right? If you go from a 60 to an 85, you probably don't. But if you go to 100 kilowatt battery pack, yeah, you may upgrade your charging a little bit and actually be able to charge a little faster. So, but again, so basically between drive unit replacement or buying a refurbished drive unit or having one refurbished and a battery pack where you actually need to replace the whole battery pack, those are the most expensive things. Now that said, if you ever had to replace an automatic transmission in a vehicle or an engine, you spent a lot of money. I mean, a V8 in some car, a V6 in some car today, it's going to cost you $8,000 easy. A transmission, it's going to cost you $4, $5, $6,000 depending on the transmission. So it's not cheap. If you're buying a used internal combustion engine vehicle, you could run into problems with the same price tag or even higher. So but yeah, battery pack and drive unit, rear drive unit mainly. Front drive units in the dual motors, the all-wheel drive Model S really haven't been a problem. It's a much smaller unit, so it's a completely different deal there. There could be an issue, but much lower chance on the front. It's usually the rear drive unit. That's kind of the killer. What else? Since the beginning, these nice door handles that the Model S has that nicely present when you walk up to the car, well, if you have it enabled, they have been an issue, especially early on. I don't know, there's like 4 generations now, 5 generations, I don't even know, I can't keep track of it. But definitely first, second generation had issues, third generation got better. What they do, they either don't present, don't come out, don't go back in, or are just flopping around loose, something like that. And there are multiple issues for that. There's micro switches in there that go bad, there's gears that break, there's wiring that can go bad. It depends a little bit on the generation. So in general, if you go to Tesla and you have a first generation, obviously they would just put the latest and greatest in, which is kind of a little bit of a problem. Even in their service manual, like if you upgrade from first generation to third generation, it's quite a bit of work, and they may not pair properly with the vehicle. That is kind of funny, but Tesla even has that stated in their service manual. As I dealt with this a few years ago, I was lucky I had another one available of the same generation, so I didn't have to go to another generation, because with the other generation also you might have to shim this door handle assembly in or out so that the door handle is nice and flush, not sucked too far in or too far out. So it's a little work and it can be a little tricky. They're not cheap, so if you're going to Tesla, it really depends, right, on what they need to do to solve these issues. But we're looking from anywhere of several $100s to a couple $1,000s, depending on what needs to be done, how many door handles, so it's a little tricky. If you go to an EV shop somewhere else, they may just replace it too. They may go through the same and actually charge similar price, or they may be able to rebuild the door handles you have. There are kits available with wiring, micro switches, these little gears. So that is another option. But these door handles been a problem for many, many years, and if someone says, oh, we just replaced all 4 of them, well, that's good for you. Then you're buying one that probably won't have any door handles issue. But if you don't know, you may have even multiple different generations on the vehicle when you purchase it used. And one may go bad, the other one may be good. Usually they all go in and out at the same time, right? So they all have about the same use on it. The driver's door is the one we open all the time, but that just is pulling on the handle, which hits another switch, lowers the window. But other than that little micro switch, we trigger then all the other door handles do everything as well every time you get in and out of the car. So, but you can expect in an early Tesla Model S that a door handle sooner or later will go bad. That's the unfortunate, sad truth. Now, speaking about doors, the windows. And if you're familiar with frameless windows, frameless meaning there is no frame over the top of the window when you open the door. Like on many cars, you open the door, while the window is down, you see this frame that goes over the top, right? But many cars do have, especially high-end cars, have frameless windows. So you just open the door. If the window is down, there is nothing there. It's wide open along the top, right? But in order for that to seal properly while you're driving, that there is no noise, no wind noise, no debris, no rain, no water getting in, these windows will have to come down a little when you open the door. But then when you close it, they will have to go up, and they push into a gasket, into a little gap. And that's why they have to lower when you open the door. And that is kind of a, what do you want to call that? A knee-jerk reaction. It just kind of pulls it down so you can open the door. And that has to go really quick because you don't want to wait and open the door. You just grab door handle and pull, right? So during that fluid motion you do, that window has to drop at least 3/8 to half an inch minimum. It usually drops about an inch. But it's just like a jerking reaction kind of thing. And that puts a lot of stress on the window regulator. And Tesla window regulators, well, on the Model S, there have been a problem. Since the Model 3 came out, these problems been basically gone away on the Model 3. I mean, I don't know that I ever needed to do a window regulator on a Model 3 because the regulator itself went bad. But on the Model S, you can expect a regulator to go bad. And when that goes bad and you go to Tesla, they sell you a whole assembly, a regulator with motor, about $300 to $400 just for the window regulator. Probably about a couple $100 installation, so you're looking $500-600, something like that, just for a window regulator. The motor is usually not a problem at all. The motors last. I swapped many motors from an old regulator to a new regulator, or from an old broken regulator to an old good regulator. So I personally have been reusing old regulators, got them out of salvage cars. Some of them I have been, when I pulled it out, I was able to redo them, restring them. Basically, there's one part in there that breaks, but then the cable comes off. But you can sometimes fix them without any parts. I do have a video where I show exactly how I fixed one of them without using any parts, where I got lucky. But then I had others where I needed parts, and I was either able to swap parts from another broken one that had this part still good, or I used the salvage one, a still okay one coming out of a salvage vehicle, and I just swapped the motor over. And then I think I have a video on that too. And then the latest video is where I actually use a aftermarket regulator. But aftermarket window regulators are only available for the front door, for the driver door and the passenger door, not the rear doors. And so if you have one of the front doors go bad, those are the ones that most commonly go bad, especially the driver's door, because it's the most open door. That's where the window works the most. Then it's the passenger usually, and then it will be rear. But it could be that the rear one fails before the driver's door. That's possible too. So, but aftermarket window regulator is about $80 to $100 or so, plus labor. Probably looking at a couple $100 for labor. So you're looking at about $300. At Tesla, you're looking at about twice that much. So yeah, it depends a little bit, but again, with especially the early ons, you definitely can experience a failing window regulator. So that's another thing that could come up. Now, what else we got? The very early ones had a TPMS, a tire pressure monitoring system from Baolong. That's the brand name. Tesla then shortly after switched to Continental, I think early 2014. So they had maybe a year and a half of bow long production. If you buy a Model S and on your dash screen, you can't see the individual tire pressures for all 4 tires, then you have a bow long system. You will only have a warning light there that tells you when something gone wrong. The warning light will come on for the TPMS. If you have a Conti system, you will see the little car icon and the 4 tire pressures. If you have a bow long system, well, obviously they switched. So there were issues with those. They did fail. And commonly at that point, it has been upgraded to the Conti system. Upgrading to the Conti system, I have a 2-part series video about that explains in detail, where you can follow along how to do all this. And then there's a 3rd video where you can see me actually install the Continental type TPMS sensor on the wheels as well. So you can find this all on my channel here. If you're handy, you can do this. The only thing you might need Tesla for is to switch from bow long to Continental, because that requires the laptop toolbox from Tesla being hooked up to switch. If you have a laptop, you can actually, currently I think it's $75 for a day. You can subscribe for a day to that software. You could go in and do that yourself. In general, Tesla is nice and switches it over for free. So I had several people that just went to Tesla. They said, hey, I did the upgrade, I did all this. Could you switch it, please? And they switched it. So it depends. You can always ask if they want a fortune. You could then decide to do it if you have a laptop and the cable. It requires a cable to hook up, so you may not have the cable, and that cable costs money too. But yeah, so I don't know what Tesla charges for such an upgrade, but probably about $700 or so. Maybe you get by off the market with $500 or so, or you do it yourself and you get by with like $300. It depends a little bit. But yeah, the bow long system had some issues. And with tire pressure monitoring system, especially on the bow long, many people just didn't care, left it alone, right? People also took rims off, put aftermarket rims on, didn't put new sensors in the aftermarket rims, and the light was just on and whatever. I don't know. People do all kinds of weird stuff. So when we bought our 2013, the light was on for the TPMS, and it turns out there were no sensors in there. Even though they were factory rims. The sensors went bad, I guess, and whatever. When they changed tires, they pulled them out. They just put regular valves in to fill and check air pressure and didn't care. So that is another issue you could run into. You can buy all these parts for the old system. Well, for the old system, you can buy sensors. You can't buy really any parts from Tesla, as far as I know. They will just send you the newer module to upgrade to the Continental system. Requires a module and the harness and some work. Well, go watch my videos. Just click on the channel icon and search for TPMS and it will pop up. So you'll find about 3 videos TPMS. One in general, how that all works and what's going on, and then the actual replacement where I show exactly how you install this new controller and the harness. And then there's the 3rd video where I install new TPMS sensors. So you can find that all on my channel. In regards to wheels, that's basically the only issue. There's many different size wheels, many different styles of wheels from Tesla. And Model S, I mean, over the years, it's always the same pattern. So some people took a Model S rim from 2018, put it on the 2013, the other way around, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of aftermarket wheels, so you just need to look at and see what you got. But if you see aftermarket wheels or you have a TPMS light on, You would suspect there may be no sensors. You might have to get sensors. If you get them from Tesla, they're not cheap. They're about $60 a piece or something. I got mine from eBay way back when. You get 4 sensors for $40, and the local tire store installed them for another $40. So it was $80 in. They had to press the tire off right where the valve is to get that old one out, put the new one in, and reinflate the tire. That's all they do. But yeah, $80 in that case. What else we got? Inside. I mean, there's many things, obviously, in interior that wear out on many cars. That's just how it is. And those are usual visual things that you see real easy. And that's up to you if you like it or not. And there are many ways to address that. Parts from Tesla are probably not available if we're talking soft materials and things. It's a little tough to find. You'll find them on eBay, coming out of salvage cars mostly. So something like that. One of the things in the interior that you might want to look at, you might want to flip the sun visor down on both sides. So when you flip the sun visor down, then you got this little flip up where the mirror is, right behind it. And this little flip up, this may be broken or maybe gone already. That's one thing you want to look at. I don't think you can even buy a sun visor from Tesla for that thing. You might be able to find something on eBay. I replaced one of those little flip-up thingies on mine from a salvage car. And guess what? About 6 months later, it broke too. So now we no longer have this cover over the mirror. So when you flip the sun visor down, the mirror is exposed. But yeah, depends on what you can deal with or what you want to deal with. I don't know if there's any aftermarket on that end. I never really looked into that, as I personally wasn't interested in it. I'm a male. I don't do makeup. I really don't look into that mirror, never ever. As a female driver, you may want that. You could use the mirror, the rear view mirror, I guess, too, if desperately needed. So that's something you might want to look at on the interior there. Obviously, you want to look at the seat belts. Seat belts can be worn out, cut. That can get really expensive. It's not really a problem with the vehicle. It's usually just a problem with the people that own the vehicle if something goes wrong with the seat belts. But on the inside, as you're sitting in and you're looking at your dash screen in front of you, you might notice something, little bubbles. There may be one bubble somewhere. There may be multiple bubbles. They look like bubbles. And that indicates that the liquid that's in there on the LCD screen is coming out, and it's dripping out the bottom. It's not dripping out down on your pants or anything because everything is covered underneath, obviously. But if you pull those covers off, well, you have to unbolt them basically. Then you'll find a gel-like, slimy, gluey substance that is coming out of that screen. And when that starts leaking out, then you get little bubbles, and there may be one right now and you may say, oh, that's no problem, I don't care. Well, 2 weeks later, there may all of a sudden be 6 of those bubbles. We had no bubbles for a long time. Then we had like 2 bubbles, and all of a sudden one day we had like 5 bubbles. Those screens, they can be rebuilt. There's rebuild kits available. You can get them on eBay. I don't know what Tesla does, actually, to be honest. But Tesla probably would replace the whole screen. Sounds expensive to me. So best bet would be an EV shop or do it yourself. I have not done mine yet. Once I will be doing it, I will have a video, and you could then follow that video. So it's probably best if you subscribe to the channel right now, because sooner or later, if you buy a Model S, you might want to watch that video along with some of the others. Now, that is basically the only issue with the screen in front of you, the dashboard or whatever, the cluster, however you want to call it, right? But then you have the center screen off to the side in the middle there. And especially in the early ones, it showed up pretty early on. Actually, there were maybe some of those that have bubbles too, now that I'm trying to think about it. But that's not really the issue. The issue is with those screens that they get a like yellowish ring around it. So from the outside in, It just, so if this is the screen, then going in, you'll see like a line, and from that line to the edge, it's kind of yellowish. And this can be all the way around, or it can show more on one or the other side, top or bottom. That is a really common issue. Tesla uses a UV light that they put on the screen, and I don't remember, they let it sit there for a couple hours or something, and that solves the issue. It's interesting. So now in that case, yes, Tesla has the UV light. I assume some other EV shops may have it too. A UV light is not necessarily cheap that you can hang on there. I don't know if you can do it with any other UV light, what it is really required. Mine doesn't have it, so another reason maybe to subscribe right now in case mine gets it. I'll find a solution for a DIY person to do it, right? So, but basically with that, you will go to Tesla. Now, as far as I know, that is a problem on MCU 1 and MCU 2. MCU stands for Media Control Unit, which is basically that big screen right there. That's a whole media control unit. Everything is in there. That's your car's computer. Now, if you have an MCU 1 and you have that problem, you may actually decide to upgrade to an MCU 2, which you gotta go see Tesla for that. I believe they're about $1,700 now. But then they take this old computer out, they put a new computer in, so then you have a nice screen. The new computer then also allows you to watch videos. You can get YouTube and stuff. Then it will be a faster processor, so it's upgraded. They switched from MCU 1 to MCU 2 in 2018. So you're at least at a model year 2018 screen standard then at that point, which, well, it's 26 now. That's still 8 years, but it's much newer than a 2013, 2014 screen. So that is another really common issue, but it doesn't affect anything. It's the screens don't break. It's just annoying to look at. What else we got? Maybe we'll go back outside. Suspension on those, well, it varies now what you got. If you have a coil suspension or air suspension. If you have an air suspension, you may run into tire wear, and you may want to buy an aftermarket kit that replaces all these parts under there, and it changes the alignment a bit, and you shouldn't really have as much tire wear. That's an air suspension issue. Since the air suspension raises and lowers, that changes the tires, the alignment a bit there. So there's stuff available there. If you have a coil suspension, you don't have that part, but still overall, Tesla suspensions wear out too, just like any others. And some of the early ones are not that great and may already have several replacement parts. There's different suspensions under there, depending on the battery pack too. There are some changes because battery packs have different weights, so there may be a different sway bar. Sway bar links are known to wear out and make noise. Bushings, obviously. So if you have, even if the vehicle doesn't have many miles on it, these are mostly like rubber parts on there, and they deteriorate over time if you have the miles or not. So you could buy a 50,000 mile vehicle that is 13, 14 years old, and it's all worn out basically, or it deteriorated. Now it has a lot of play on there. You get clunking, or it may pull to this side, pull to that side, all kinds of stuff like that. Your steering may have a little play there, and that can be on a low mileage or a high mileage vehicle, because the miles, yes, they can wear out these parts, but so does age in many cases. So there are a whole bunch of aftermarket parts available for this. So you don't have to go to Tesla and pay them a fortune to replace all these. You can go to an EV shop. You can still have them possibly get some Tesla parts. We'll have to look at the pricing at the time and what you need. Tesla parts are commonly actually pretty cheap. not cheaply made, but the price is relatively low. So many times I bought parts from Tesla because the price was lower than used parts on eBay or aftermarket parts that you could find. But with suspension, maybe you can find a better suspension online from an aftermarket manufacturer for the same or even less money than Tesla. And it totally depends on what all would need to be replaced. But you can expect something on the suspension sooner or later will give. But hey, you buy a internal combustion engine vehicle, their suspension wears out too. With an electric car, you can hear the clunking a lot sooner because you don't have the noisy engine, right? So a lot of people with a gas car, they never even hear the clunking, right? They just drive and drive and drive, even though the suspension's worn out. And yeah, they don't know until something really breaks or really goes wrong. While when you drive a Model S, let's say, there's no engine noise, so you hear clunking a lot sooner. And then that's when you usually have things addressed. So yeah, that's another thing that could go wrong. What else we got? Headlights. Obviously headlights can burn out. It just kind of reminds me of the Toyota Prius, because I know several Toyota Prius owners and they had to replace their headlights. Prius also actually last very long and have usually high mileage, and the headlights burn out. There's like a generator behind it, right? Behind those light bulbs. So they're not cheap. Again, you can see Tesla aftermarket. Sometimes aftermarket's cheaper. That may be one thing that goes wrong. And as I just pointed out, that has nothing really to do with Tesla. That is just that kind of light that's in there. And then if we come to the latest here, the newer Teslas, obviously, we have switched to better lights, and we don't have that issue anymore. Lights, tail lights have a tendency on Teslas to take on moisture, and for some reason it doesn't evaporate. That's a weird Tesla issue, it seems like, almost. So ours on our Tesla Model S, actually, because we drive up and down a dusty dirt road, they accumulated dust inside. So I assume somebody took, there's usually a little breather or something, and somebody took the breather out, or somebody drilled a hole so that the moisture, that the air could circulate and the moisture would come out, right? But now the dust went in our case, and someday I might actually see if I can open those up somehow. They're glued together, so you can't really open them up, but maybe. So make sure you're subscribed so you get to see that video. But if you have one that has a lot of moisture in it, you basically need a new tail light usually. And then if you just replace one on one side, the older one on the other side looks like crap. So you want to replace both of them. You can get those again aftermarket or from Tesla. They may still be available. Not sure. You may get them on eBay used. There are different options there. Whoa, what else we got? Early models had a sunroof. The sunroof can create some issues, can create some leaks, needs a little maintenance and stuff. But in general, had some that had a motor replaced. I don't know, it hasn't been really a huge issue with those. If you have air suspension, you may need a compressor. That is not unusual. They may wear out eventually, or there may be a leak on the system, and then the compressor starts running excessively and wears out. That's kind of to be expected. That's not necessarily a Tesla problem either. Other vehicles with air suspension go through the same thing. But it can be an issue on a Model S. It's not too expensive. If you have air suspension and one of the airbags starts leaking and stuff, you need a complete new strut. That's a little expensive. You're looking easily at $1,000. And in general, when you do a spring on one side, you want to do the spring on the other side, and the shock absorber is in, so you want to do both sides. So you may look at $2,000. It depends a little bit on if you're going to Tesla or an EV shop somewhere else. Then what else we have? Air conditioning. As you can see here behind me, you see the grill, and debris can get in there, and there's shutters that open and close. Those shutters are known to fail eventually. It's it can be multiple things. It could be just something's jammed in there, debris in there, and actually not letting it work. Or it could be the motor that is bad and you need to replace the motor on it. Just one side, well, you got to pull the whole fascia off. So if you just do one side, you're looking at about $700 or so probably. But if you're doing one, you maybe want to do the other motor too if you replace the motor, because the labor is almost the same, right? It's just because you got to pull all that off the front. So you may want to or may not, that's up to you. But definitely you want to check for debris in there first. And one of the maintenance items that comes up before it fails is maybe getting in there and cleaning all the debris out, leaves and things that actually block these radiator looking things. Because these radiator looking things, on the side we have actually condensers. In the middle we kind of have what you will call the radiator, which is for the battery cooling, so we can cool the battery. And then on the side we have the radiator looking things, the condensers for the air conditioning, which is also needed for battery cooling because we're also using the air conditioning to do so. In any event, if you have a lot of debris in there, your AC may no longer blow cold or be as cold, and that may just be due to debris in there and nothing actually being broken yet is the keyword. So if you can catch it at that point and get in there and clean that out, have somebody get in there and clean that out. It depends a little bit. It can be a bit of work, but that bit of work could cost a few $100 compared to $1,500 or more if you need an AC compressor. Because if you don't resolve that issue, your AC will quit working. That could affect your battery performance. That could do a whole spiel of things. And when it comes to battery cooling and the AC compressor needs to run for battery cooling, the AC compressor will run trying to save the battery, and eventually the AC compressor runs excessively and disintegrate inside usually and spread metal through the entire system, which is really hard to clean out, almost impossible. So in many cases, many parts need replaced, even if basically just the AC compressor itself failed, but the debris spread inside the system. So it can be really expensive. So cleaning that out, making sure those shutters are working is kind of important, or it can become costly. Yeah, and that's already it. I think these are the very most common. Maybe I forgot something. If you know more of really common problems, well, put it down in the description. Let us know. Do you actually own a early Model S or so, or any Model S? What problems have you experienced? There are going to be a lot of different problems, but sometimes you may have experienced it. Put it down in comments. Doesn't mean it's a thing that everyone else will experience. Other things like those that I mentioned, they're pretty common and happen to a lot of people, maybe even happen multiple times throughout the lifetime of this vehicle, because the early vehicles are now 14 years old. Some of them have several 100,000 miles on them. So yeah, let me know what your experiences are if you have one. If you're looking for one and you haven't seen the part 1 of this series yet, make sure you go watch the part 1 of this used Tesla Model S deal here, because there are so many different types of Model S. So you want to go watch that. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you have experienced. Are you looking for one? If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. If I can answer them, I will. Maybe someone else that is watching this and goes through the comments will be able to answer them if I don't. Yeah, but important is don't just go out and buy a used Tesla Model S, because if you don't know things, you may be in for an expensive surprise. And if you know things, well, it may still be expensive, but at least you know what to expect. And if you watch part 1, then at least you can make sure you get the right Model S that is what you wanted and not something that it's not. So yeah, that is important. Also, yes, make sure you are subscribed to our channel. And as I mentioned before, I have lots of videos, DIY videos. When I work on our vehicles, we have currently that one 2013 Model S with 235,000 miles on it or something, I think it is. We have a 2018 Model 3 with about 125,000 miles on it. We do have a 24 Rivian R1S. We do have a 24 Tesla Cybertruck. So I'm not just talking about something that I don't know. We're actually living this. We only have driven electric cars since 2018. We have not owned an internal combustion engine car since 2018. We've literally been driving electric cars only. And I'm specifying cars because I still do have a 1-ton diesel truck, for a simple fact that I do tow gooseneck trailers, sometimes up to 40,000 pounds. And yeah, there is no electric truck out there yet, pickup truck, that I can buy and that can do this. So I have this Dodge truck still around, but we hardly ever drive it. And literally cars, we only driven electric since 2018, and that is 8 years now. So our daughter currently drives our 2013 Tesla Model S since she hit a coyote with our Tesla Model 3. And so another reason to subscribe, because I have a video that I'm working on right now, or actually I'm working on a car, and I'm recording the repair process of redoing the front, fascia, painting, etc., all that stuff. So yeah, another reason to be subscribed to our channel. Well, give us a thumbs up for this video, please. Make sure we poke that YouTube algorithm. Also, feel free to share that video with your friends, family, co-workers, your enemies, whomever you want to, so we can grow this community of EV people, and people that want to work on EVs, and people that just enjoy driving EVs, people that want to learn about EVs, right? So let's grow that community. Make sure to give every one of our videos a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed. Make sure to share those videos. Leave comment down below. Use our links in the description to purchase accessories and so on. There's a whole bunch of links and discount codes, so go ahead and use those, please. Yeah, well, in any event, thank you for watching. Goodbye.